Something I've noticed in recent years, since around the New 52, the main Batman title is almost insular, with events happening in the DC universe rarely affecting it, or at least it's a one-sided insularity, as the main Batman title would end up influencing other stuff like the ones you'd expect, like Nightwing and Batgirl, but also stuff like Teen Titans, or just plain Titans. Okay, look, I'm actually going somewhere with this, because the first thought that crossed my mind after completing Batman Under the Red Hood was how refreshing it was for Batman to actually feel like a character in the wider DC universe in his own title. This story is probably writer Judd Winnick's magnum opus. It's the tale about how Batman's greatest failure came back to haunt him. The protege he failed to save, returning as a violent murderer who has completely abandoned the code of ethics foisted upon him by his mentor, which in of itself would be an amazing hook for a story, which we know from the animated adaptation of this tale, widely considered to be one of the best DC animated movies. So good, they tried to do a version of Death in the Family that mostly ended up being a voiceover clips of that movie. Yes, I am still salty about that, can't you tell? But what makes the comic work, for me at least, are those mentioned previously little touches that make this story feel like part of a larger picture. What are those touches? Well, keep on watching to find out. Nailed it. Besides writer Judd Winnick, here's a list of all the contributors to the story arc, with special shoutouts to artists Doug Mahnke and Shane Davis, who do amazing work bringing these characters to life with their pencils. The comic begins in medias res, with a fight between Batman and the titular Red Hood. The fight ends with the Red Hood unmasking Batman, dun dun dun. However, not wanting to be a poor sport, he unmasks as well, with Batman going, "You? Dun dun dun!" Then cut to the beginning of all this, with Batman reminiscing how most of his allies have left him and started working on their own after the disastrous War Games saga, which not only revealed Batman's presence to the public, after the event 0 Hour, Batman was retconned into being more of an urban legend. Don't ask how that works. But also killed off Orpheus and Spoiler. The latter would be brought back, but not the former. Probably since there was a lot of outrage over the blonde white girl dying and not so much over the black man who wanted to be an entertainer as well as a hero. As Batman mopes, and yes, I say mopes because most of what happened was entirely his fault, he's informed by Lucius Fox that someone seems to have taken over the division of Wayne Tech providing Batman with his toys. I wonder who that could be. We get our first establishing moment with the Red Hood as he recruits a bunch of drug runners to work for him. This scene is recreated pretty well in the animated adaptation, and since I don't know where I'll have a chance to say it, Jensen Ackles is a damn good Red Hood.
Wanna die? There's easier ways to kill yourself!
Yeah, like yelling at the guy who's holding the AK-47.
While most of Batman's allies have left him, Nightwing, who despite having broken his leg in his own title, shows up to check on Bruce. Batman tries to brush him off, but Dick isn't having any of it and joins him on patrol. Another consequence of the War Games was that the gangster Black Mask now controlled all crime in Gotham. We see the dude reveling in his power, brushing off the Red Hood as a minor annoyance, and ignoring the fact that Mr. Freeze, someone he hired as a little extra muscle, keeps killing his own men. He currently has his eye on a shipment, which is being disrupted by Batman and Nightwing. They end up attacked by the Red Hood, who Batman notices has really good moves for a new guy, and are chased straight into an Amazo android. I'm not sure I've mentioned Amazo before, so I'll give a summary about him. He's an android, except for that one time they were a virus, meant to defeat the Justice League by copying their abilities, making it quite the tall task for Batman and Nightwing to handle. This fight is also present in the animated adaptation, but is toned down. Not only has Amazo lost the green from his costume, he seems to have lost the ability to speak and his personality altogether. However, since we are not in a Justice League title and in the pages of Batman, the fight doesn't end with Bruce and Dick being splattered against the wall, but with Amazo at the bottom of Gotham Harbor. Black Mask is naturally a little pissed, and gets pissed off even more when he realizes that the Red Hood had stolen something even more valuable, a crate filled with kryptonite. Black Mask sends Freeze after the kryptonite, and Batman and Nightwing end up in the middle of their fight. Both Freeze and Red Hood escape, while also showing us that the latter has the Joker in his custody, whom he proceeds to beat with a crowbar. I wonder if there's any significance to that. Batman now begins to search for some answers, as he begins to suspect that the Red Hood is Jason Todd brought back from the dead. Sorry, spoilers. And here we get to see some effects of continuity, as Batman's interactions with Zatanna and Green Arrow are very frosty after the events of Identity Crisis, where it was revealed that they were among the heroes of the League who mind-wiped him, a fact he has started to catch on to. Meanwhile, back in Gotham, the former assassin Onyx, the only hero in Gotham that Batman sanctioned, ends up interacting with Red Hood while taking down a drug bust and is stabbed by him. Albeit not fatally, as he has no intention of actually killing her. Batman shows up and we finally lead into the fight at the beginning, where Red Hood is revealed to be Orpheus. So Jason then gives him a bunch of means to test whether he's really back, which do verify that it indeed is Jason, but I'll get back to how he returned later. Jason continues to disrupt Black Mask's operations, with the most recent attempt being a rocket straight into the dude's office. However, continuity is here to save Black Mask, as Deathstroke shows up to offer him membership in the secret society of supervillains as part of the lead-up to Infinite Crisis, with all the perks that come with it. The society sends Captain Nazi, Hyena, and Count Vertigo to kill the Red Hood, but Batman shows up and the two team up to take the villains down, with Jason killing Captain Nazi. The fight also takes place in the animated adaptation, but the villains are replaced with a bunch of generic cyborg assassins, which is just disappointing. I mean, you could have just used the guys and not have a connection with the secret society, just say Black Mask hired them. Wouldn't have been a loss.
What the hell took you so long?
Shut up and fight.
Batman decides enough is enough and vows to take Jason down despite not wanting to fight him and feeling responsible for failing him, while Black Mask and Red Hood get into a physical fight, showcasing how the villain went from trivializing Jason as a threat to outright bargaining with him face-to-face on his terms. Bruce and Alfred receive a lock of the Joker's hair, basically telling them that, yeah, Jason has the Joker. Black Mask seemingly kills Red Hood, except it wasn't him. It was just some dude with a radio. Yeah, sure. Why not? And Batman goes on to confront Jason. Except Infinite Crisis has started, and the chemical villain Chemo, very on brand, has just been dropped on Bloodhaven, Nightwing City. However, Jason isn't about to let Bruce search for his sidekick that was seemingly caught in an explosion, delicious as that irony may be. The two fight, with the animated adaptation combining the previous fight and this one in a single one. that acted as the final scene of the entire movie. And the comic then plays out the same way. Jason asks Batman to kill him or the Joker. Batman goes for a third option. The Joker tries to blow themselves all up. The end. Yeah, seriously, that's how the story ends in the comic. Naturally, they're all okay, but yeah, that's under the Red Hood. So let's talk about the whys and hows of Jason's resurrection, shall we? The idea to resurrect Jason came from the positive reception to a part in a previous story, Batman Hush. In that story, the villain Hush, in his efforts to mess with Batman's mind, decided to have Clayface act as a resurrected Jason Todd, who, as I have mentioned in a previous video, was one of the 3 people who was always stayed dead in comics. However, seeing the positive reception to a reborn Jason made DC go, well, what's stopping us from bringing him back for real? The next part was the how. While the Lazarus Pit was the obvious option, even the movie uses it, Jason had been dead a long time in the comics, a little bit beyond the expiry date. So the books needed a separate explanation. While there was apparently an idea involving the Red Hood being a Jason Todd from an alternate universe who was never Robin, the solution they went with was to have Superboy Prime, one of the survivors of the original Crisis and antagonist of the then upcoming Infinite Crisis, punch the walls of reality, bringing Jason back from the dead. However, he was a little more than a brain-damaged zombie at the time, but with the help of Talia al Ghul and a little dip in the Lazarus Pit, that wasn't much of an issue. They even retconned it in so it was Jason for a little bit in that Hush story I mentioned before Clayface was revealed, which was just stupid and unnecessary. You just hurt the previous story by adding this little retcon in. Seriously, comics, why? Why retcon that? Some people really have an issue with Jason being resurrected by Superboy Prime's reality-altering punch, saying that it detracts from the grounded, realistic world of Batman. These same people seem to think that a man dressing up like a bat to fight crime isn't unrealistic in any way, or that him being resurrected by a mystical pit is somehow fine, but, reality-altering punch is going too far. Personally, I love it. It's one of those things that just happens in superhero comics and makes Jason's resurrection just stand out a bit more. As for what would happen with Jason after this story, honestly, it's kind of downhill from here. He'd antagonize other heroes, mainly Nightwing, until the New 52, after which they'd use the continuity reboot to steer him in more of an anti-hero role, who had better relations with the Bat family. At this point, he's basically Grifter, which is especially hilarious considering that the New 52 would also bring him into main continuity as well. Hell, even his position as the Robin who died isn't all that unique, considering every bearer of that mantle seems to have taken a quick dirt nap, faked or otherwise. Right now, he's just another guy wearing the bat symbol in a frankly vast roster of characters that just seems to be spiraling out of control. And yet, Orpheus stays dead. I joked about Orpheus secretly being the Red Hood, but considering that Black Mask was the guy who killed him in War Games, can't you tell me that there would have been a fun twist if it turned out that Orpheus had somehow been resurrected by the Lazarus Pit and he was just going around messing with Black Mask as some sort of revenge? I don't know. I guess that was too obvious, but hey, Jason's more popular, I guess.